Before I dive into the questions, I just want to quickly, I don't know if anyone will respond. I hope you do. Who loves interruptive ads? Who hates interruptive ads? Just let us know in the chat if you if that's an experience you like, interruptive ads or dislike.
While you're doing that, I can ask it even a different way because I walked into a room in this major event. It's the upfronts. It's where tens of billions of dollars are allocated in New York. I walked into that meeting with all the executives and I said, raise your hands if you watch Netflix or Amazon Prime or one of these services. And the whole room raised their hand. I said, isn't it funny that you guys spend your day allocating billions of dollars of interruptive ads, yet you literally go home, pay money to avoid watching any ads? And so, we had their attention. So that's what got the company going.
That's amazing. We want to set some context. You've been in this in and out. You're doing this at the forefront with some of the best people, like the Trade Desk. I want to get from your perspective. You know, how is advertising evolving from the past 10, 15 years? How have you seen any shifts, any cultural shifts, any consumer slash programmatic? What are your thoughts on that? Love to get from your
The main one is that over the last 15 years, people have been very focused on efficiency, which is get the right ad to the right person at the right price, in the right context. And bidding has opened that up. And there's a whole ecosystem of people who help you do that. And new techniques come out which make it, X% more efficient in that bidding process. And that's been going on for some while with tens of billions of investments for companies that do that. What people didn't do was actually touch the ad itself, the creative unit itself, because that was a manual process. AI came along, and all of a sudden now we have the capability of changing what the ad is. And that opens up not a 2 or 3% efficiency opportunity, but a 10x opportunity to change the outcomes that you want out of those ads. There was a banker, Terry Quadja, used to have this picture of this iceberg, and he said, efficiency is everything you see above the water. Effectiveness is the massive part of the iceberg. And now with AI, it's as if we drain the water and it's all accessible to us and we can change the outcomes. That's an area, we call it AI creative for programmatic, where there's going to be lots of investment, lots of work on changing what you actually see and opening up effectiveness.
That's amazing. When did you, at one point, what was a point where at that specific moment you said we need to rethink this entire opportunity, to rethink the ad model, and that led you up to Rembrand today?
Yeah, I mean, I had been, working at Cisco, and you remember COVID hit us, and we were all sitting all our lives in front of these little squares and tiles on, for me it was WebEx, but everybody else on Zoom. And what I realized is nobody would ever experience a video as a raw video again. It would all be AI filtered. Even here, my background is filtered. At the time we were building AI language translation in your voice. And we realized that would be a fundamental piece of technology. People would have it imbued in everything they did. And we started thinking about the most interesting application areas. And I just went back to my roots in advertising and said, I don't see that many ads inside of my Netflix and Amazon Prime and Apple TV experience. Yet someone who grew up in that area. How are brands going to maintain attention? And then I realized I actually do see some brands that's product placement. So when you're seeing a movie and you're seeing, Pepsi or you're seeing, an Apple computer or you're seeing something else, it's placed there. Except they did that 2 years in advance by negotiating with the team to get into the script. So I said, that's really important, but it's damn slow. Like, that's not media. That's something else. That's like sponsorship. how could we transform the industry and use AI to change that opportunity to make it much more fast moving so you don't have to interrupt the content. Let people enjoy their content, but you also want to fund it. And that's what advertising does. It funds content.
Definitely. And if you were to put your perspective on the traditional advertising side, where's the lag there? Where's the lag there? What do you think uh, Rembrandt's doing to be able to solve this problem that you're looking at?
Yeah, it's mainly um, if you're going to move at the speed of advertising, people need to be able to log in a system, create a creative unit, flight it, give it a start date and an end date, and watch the results come in. And what product placement and even early virtual product placement by other companies was still stuck in this realm of weeks and weeks of negotiation and back and forth. In the case of product placement, physically, it could be 2 years in advance. And it's a different type of people. It's people who carry sponsorship budgets, who typically want to get in planes and do deals over dinner. It's very different than programmatic advertising, which transformed all of that and turned it into a much more dynamic, much larger market. So we needed to do that to make product placement be more like running media. And that took solving some very hard technology problems, right? Being able to take a highly produced, beautiful piece of video and alter it in a way that everybody would think looks natural. And I think later on I'll show you what that looks like.
You show us now. Show us now. I think we want to see how does that look like. I
Let's
think
do it.
see what does
Uh,
product placement look like, and we're doing it at scale. So
Great. So I'll show you a couple of videos just to give a sense. So this is like what product placement looks in the scenes physically placed in a movie or TV show. So there you see the Quaker Oats. Here you see an actual car being placed, a billboard being placed, another one. Okay, so that's one set of placements. What I'm going to show you here is purely billboards because they open up an opportunity. They're not as sexy as placing the physical 3D car. They're not as sexy as placing the Coke can, which we still do tons of. But there's something interesting going on here. I'll show it to you.
let's see.
Do you see this tab? Do
Yeah,
you
we do.
you see you see
Yeah,
my screen?
right.
Yeah. So this
Yeah,
is
we
like a scene in a Discovery show, but you see the Cadillac ad being placed. It's lyric, it's electric. Here you're going to see a scene where we transform to put Macy's, Prada. Uh, Another scene there, you just have an ugly wall, but you just covered it with always. Um, what's really interesting about these particular types of placements. So, oops, where did I go? Uh,
that's it, I think.
oh, I think I touched the screen, so it went. So what you see with those types of placements is you're able to get something that I call a functional message. You're able to say, when we showed you the car just sitting there, you just saw a car sitting there. But here, now you know the lyric is electric. So you're able to communicate an interesting piece of news. So we'll get into a little bit that later. But if you look at the different styles of this virtual placement, some of it is just placing the object to impact a brand goal, which is, hey, there's an object in a movie, so I like it, and my likability goes up. But then there's this other set of goals around placing billboards and TV screens where you can go a little bit further and give a message that the advertiser wants to give. More on that later.
Okay. Wow. Um, I can only imagine, even from the people that I know work on programmatic, they've just to make that happen, that's at least 2 to 3 months of planning and so much budget and support. And from the marketer's perspective, you're looking at connecting all the dots. Who do we want to speak to? What message? And then where exactly do we want this billboard? And now it's all just magically done through Rembrandt. Okay, that's very interesting. I want to love for you to give us an example, like any real example have you done any real example of this with any brand today, and just give us a little bit of light on that.
Yeah, yeah, totally. So we've worked, the combination of, the announcement that we did yesterday where we acquired this company. We at Rembrand had been working with the largest brands, people like your L'Oreal's and Amazon's and Unilever and Pepsi, and done tons of examples of them, both in creator influencer videos and in professional TVs and shows. And then we just acquired this company, Spaceback, who had worked a little bit with Longtail. But together, we've covered 7 out of the 10 largest digital advertisers. So I'll show you an example of something that just happened last month. So this is, Cardi B put out put out a music video called Imaginary Players. And Imaginary Players integrated in Mugler, which is a fragrance from L'Oreal. And that's what you see in her hand, is this fragrance. So, you can do placements that are beautiful. And obviously Cardi B and L'Oreal both care about beauty. The highlight reel showed you real shows that we were working with, very strong publisher brands in the United States. We also work with some top creator agencies and influencers. But what's interesting about that is Cardi B also, in addition to the music video, did a specific TikTok. And what we did here is we then took that TikTok and turned it into a TV ad with shoppability on it. And you'll see how this plays. By the way, Cardi B is a bit the thing she talks about is not the kind of language you expect me to use on a webinar, but please forgive me. This is this is a real example actually played on TV.
This gives the highest sexiest stiletto. It's super sexy.
Okay, so I'll stop it there. But what you'll notice is, you're watching an ad, you're watching, and all of a sudden this ad plays on your TV. It's content now because it's literally social content from Cardi B. So you're paying attention. The ad unit's animated, so the hearts fly. It's got a QR code, so you can actually scan and buy it right away. So this was the one exception to our business where we said, generally we don't like interruptions, but there's certain types of content people don't view as an ad. Like when you go to the movie theater and the next movies that are coming up play, it is an ad, but it's a piece of content. And so what we do is we take trending, attractive social content, and in some cases turn that into an ad unit. And this is what kind of the synergy between what Rembrand and Spaceback do together is we put the brand in the content. They then take that content and turn it into an ad unit. So we cover both sides of the spectrum because we don't expect the 15 and 30-second ad units completely disappear. What we want to do is if we can put more into the content, you'll be able to shift your monetization so that you have fewer ads interrupting the show, not necessarily zero. But when they do have an ad interrupting the show, if we can make that also content, this gives you a practical example of what we do.
Just for context, can you just quickly just tell us how this would have been done, what you just did like 5 years ago or even 2 years ago?
Yeah. I mean, and I think an example of that that's really good is like Aston Martin wanted to appear in an action movie, so they negotiated a couple years before the movie went out with Casino Royale. And these kind of deals are, high millions, multiple years. And they're done by very specialized people who hang around, with the agencies that deal with Hollywood. And it takes a long time, and it's a very big budget, and it's hard to measure its impact. Now, we all know that there is an impact of putting an Aston Martin inside of James Bond, so it's good. They should keep doing that. But not many people have 2 years and $10 million to kind of allocate in that kind of way. So that's how it was done. And in the influencer world, it's a little bit faster, but still painful. You have to, go out and find an influencer. It's 4 to 6 weeks of negotiation. You ship your product to them. You give them a script. They read the script and they say, heck no, I'm not reading that script. I don't sound authentic. And then you go back and forth and you sign a contract. And then you launch it. And the measurement of organic content is very poor. It's not like advertising that's very highly measured. And so that industry needs to evolve too.
Definitely, definitely. I want to touch a little bit on uh personalization. I think that's a very important thing today. There's a lot of layers of data, and people want to, at least brands want to be able to connect with their audiences specifically and want to make sure that they resonate. When I ask you, in terms of programmatic insertion, how does Rembrandt play a role in personalizing those ads? And if two people are watching the same show, do they get different type of product placements?
That's the holy grail of programmatic insertion. So we have actually built all the pipes with all the key players, DSPs, SSPs, server-side ad integration. So the answer is yes, we're just starting to do that. And we think this is where the industry really, really gets interesting. And the creative jump that we had to do is ads today are personalized, meaning there's something called server-side ad insertion. A show is going, there's something called a VAS tag. It basically says, great, now I'm going to call server side and I'm going to show an ad, but I'm going to target it. Males are going to see one ad, females are going to see another ad. And we didn't used to have that in linear TV. We now have that in CTV, which is, a $48 billion industry. But what we're going to do is basically take the movie or the TV show before the ad and also server-side ad and serve it so that some audience will see nothing, and some will see, Dasani water, and somebody else might see, a Pepsi, right? So you're able to programmatically offer the exact same piece of show. And the way we were able to do it is use AI to do the dynamic insertion, but then use server-side ad inserting to show two different audiences. We didn't have to reinvent the wheel on server-side ad insertion. It's an existing approach that works today. Thankfully for us, it would have been too expensive for us to transform the industry. That exists. The part that didn't exist was the ability to change the content before the ad using AI, and that's what we implemented.
Okay. Now, I think now for the first time, I think I've it's the first time I see brands having this much level of ability to just be anywhere at the right time. And even the movies we love. I mean, look, the movies we all love, I'm sure if you ask you that question, you're gonna come up in your head and it's imprinted. You love them and you know them. You will never forget them. And now those movies, these brands will be able to be in them and be part of those stories. And I think in the past, it's been very hard to do that. Um, but now with technology, I think there's one shift that I've seen is AI being able to have sentiment analysis and context analysis. This is pretty much AI being able to understand the scene, the context, what's really going on, and then kind of get an idea of uh, which brand or which product placement would be perfect here. Do you think Rembrandt's going to play a role in that? And I'm really excited to see that because I think that is super exciting.
Yeah, totally. In order to alter and place a product to augment a video scene, you have to understand it. That's the first thing. You need perception. You need to be able to understand the three-dimensionality of the scene, the lighting of the scene, but you also have to understand the context of the scene. And so, generative techniques until recently were good at some of the understanding of it because they commonly use the perception AI that was built even before generative, but they weren't good at taking a highly produced piece of video and changing it, but non-destructively. Diffusion techniques generally were not controllable. They were great at generating a few seconds from scratch, but not great at placing something without messing with my eyes and my fingers and the font on the brand. And that's kind of the area we focused on, which is spatially aware AI. And more recently, we started to use diffusion techniques, but a corner of diffusion which is controllable and very spatially aware. While you're doing that, one of the outputs is very good, rich descriptions of what's actually going on in the scene, an ability to know, the sentiment of the scene, the fact that this is a kitchen, that there are younger people in the kitchen, that we've even built agents that not just understand the scene, we understand the brand. We've analyzed the videos that they put on their social post. We've analyzed the words they use. And that way you can ask the agent, is this a great context to put the perfume in?
I could tell you from my perspective as a marketer, I've spent a lot of time doing research, trying to understand if this is the right place to go, this is the right place to advertise on, or trying to be part of that organic scene. And I think a lot of brands get that wrong, unfortunately. And you have some of the best, what I call empaths, who are supposed to have a lot of empathy of what's going on, but they still struggle. So I see this playing a massive role. I wanted to ask, outside, we see clear value here in beauty and CPG. You've shown us that, but where else do you see this benefiting this kind of advertising? You see this music, in finance, in retail, or
We definitely retail. One of the examples I showed you there was like a Macy's billboard. We see this in finance. We've worked with some top banks putting out messaging there. And the reason we're able to widely do this, like we've done this with movies, so entertainment, lots of CPG, restaurant chains, retail, finance, computers and tech. So why is it so wide? One, there are lots of context scenes, but there's actually one really important thing we do, which makes you not limited by context. And it's something that we call functional messaging or transition scenes. If you've seen, a lot of times you're in a show and then you need to show the audience that you're going somewhere else, right? It's a scene transition. They take you to an outdoor scene in a cityscape to show you what city you're in. There, you can put a very large billboard with a message in it. And in that moment, it doesn't matter that in the scene before, it was Law and Order in a crime scene, or it was a Hallmark family scene. What's more important, other than that telling you who the audience is, what's more important is now the outdoor scene is context free. And there, if you saw a Charles Schwab ad or a movie for Lord of the Rings, or if you saw one of those things, it looks in place. It is natural for you to see city scenes with billboards. So your brain doesn't question that. So by focusing on those areas where we put billboards, you open up context. And you do this other magical trick. You separate supply from demand. It means that you can go to people who own content and say, hey, here are all the places we're going to put these billboards. Okay with you? Yes. And then you go to advertisers and say, hey, are you okay with billboards? They're like, yeah. And they're less constrained by the context. And now the opportunity becomes way larger.
wow. I'm very curious on creators and culture. I think it's an understatement of how much they're driving. And I know I have probably gonna get burned for this, but I probably have friends that are a person that their personalities have been copied by these influencers. I can see it really. So I'm curious to see. I've seen Unilever just dumping 50% of their budget into into influencers. Like, can you tell us from your perspective why that is, and why is that so important?
Yeah, very, very brave and forward-thinking leadership at Unilever. They shifted significant budget there because they realize that the influencers set the taste. They're the tastemakers, and that in many cases, consumers trust influencers more than they trust the brand. That doesn't mean they infinitely trust them. They don't. But they do spend time in influencer content, and they choose the niche that they want. They choose the people and the personalities they want, and they pay attention to what they do and what they say. So people like Unilever had a choice. In the past, what they would do is if they wanted to change taste and get people to pay attention to their brand, they'd hire an agency, spend $1 million, 28 days of production to get an ad out. Meanwhile, while they're spending that $1 million in 28 days, memes are coming up through these influencers every day. And if you analyze the curve on the activity of a meme, you will see this bell curve that peaks at 7 days and goes into its trough at the 14th day. So if you're out here making $1 million bets that first see the light of day every 28 days, you cannot move at the speed of culture. Even if you could move at the speed of culture, some of your audience, the younger ones, not even looking at those things. They're in the middle of watching their creator. And so they needed a new way, and Unilever figured that out. And what was very interesting about the Unilever folks is they were realistic. They understood that if they were going to play in the creatorscape, they had to lose a little control. They had to be able to fit in to the natural conversations and be a bit more authentic, which literally means you have to lose a little bit of control. They're very realistic about those trade-offs.
That's very interesting. That's a massive shift, and I'm curious to see whether that kind of leverage is going to be more and more on the creator side. Now, you said something very interesting: the speed of culture. They can't, from what you described, it's clear they can't keep up. They can't keep up, and for anyone to be a part of that culture is the dream for most brands, at least, because like you said, the trust and the relevance is down to the creator. What can we do? Like, what could there be done to be able to actually keep up with this?
Yeah, so that like, at Rembrand, we attack that problem from two different angles. On one angle, what we do is we say, great content is being produced. Post-production, it might be hours before that video goes live. We can place your product in it, not 2 months in advance, not all this negotiation. You don't even have to tell the people to change what they're going to say. We can place you in just at the right moment. So just in time, where content is about to go out into the wild, we can put it in. So that's the first area that really accelerated movement. The next thing that we can do is using what we do with Spaceback is the second we see a video is trending, we can take that particular video, augment it by putting AI in it, or it may already have the product in it, turn it into a TV unit, make it shoppable, put a QR code, animate the comments and likes, and within minutes, turn that into a TV ad running everywhere. So both cases, you flip the script on highly produced, controlled, long time to see what content is great and insert, and then activate and promote.
Okay, I've never seen a time where social media creators and team on the creative side to be like really addicted to the culture, make sure we don't miss anything. But
Right.
I think that I still see one challenge here is to anticipate this creator getting viral. Is there anything that you guys do to do that?
Well, yeah, we cheat like heck in two ways. So the first one is we use the same form of cheating that Ra'id does. And what is that? As a venture capitalist and you're betting on companies, you can't guarantee that all 10 bets you're going to make are going to be just outstanding, hit it out of the park. I mean, maybe Ra'id can because he has a crystal ball, but all other VCs can't. So what they do is they make multiple bets, but they make good bets. They don't just throw money at anybody. They have a vetting process that says, out of all the startups, here are the 10 I'm gonna invest in, and there's going to be a high likelihood of some of them hitting it really well and some of them hitting it just somewhat well and so on. So we do the same thing, which is we look at the past hits of that influencer, and we've multiple times chosen an influencer who was in the top 10 videos of YouTube with our product placed in it, and it didn't cost so much for the brand to be in that, because we didn't have to pay the price of that being a top 10 video. We didn't know. We just knew it was a reasonable chance. So that's one form of cheating, which is you make multiple bets, knowing that not all of them are going to go viral. So that's number one. Number two, with the acquisition that we just did, merging in, with Spaceback, we now see that the video already is going viral, and we transform it into a TV ad and run that. And that means that all these people who wanted to advertise in TV but didn't have the creative for it, now they can come to our system and then within minutes take a social post, turn it into TV ad, and run it anywhere without having, to spend all those millions creating those ads and waiting for a month. So we attack the problem from both sides.
That is very interesting. Now, given that the creators now are gonna be the head of this thing, I think we can clearly see that there's a technological development that we can kind of pounce at these creators in product placement, but we still have to do the context matching. Does Rembrandt have any way where you find the right creators with the right context
Sure.
and seamlessly, I know that process in and hard myself. It's pretty tough.
Yeah. So we essentially built an agentic workflow that does the scene understanding that we built our AI on, but then we just added onto it the understanding of the brand. So, we will go in and say, hey, this is a skincare brand. We'll read and see their videos, come up with the agent will, not us, it'll understand the brand and it understands the content and it matchmakes and it scores and it basically says, great, we found 4 creators here, potentially that you've already worked with in the past. And here are the actual videos that you could, insert your product into or turn into an ad.
Okay. We're gonna see a lot of brands at the right time. It's gonna be quite exciting. Um, I think for a lot of folks here, maybe on the marketing side, we really need to understand what the next 18 months, 2 years is gonna look like. Wanted to ask you, uh, what does targeted bidding in context analysis in context ads look like, and what is it gonna look like? If you could give us a brief understanding of that and a little bit of an idea of where brands should focus on it and how should they focus on it.
Yeah. So, so many advertisers want to be in something like CTV, and they are in it with programmatic. The problem they're missing is they don't always have the ads for it because it's highly produced, and we solve that problem by taking social, turn it into an ad, and letting it run it programmatically. And we do that today all day long across thousands of advertisers. The new part is not just running as an ad in the ad pod, it's being able to programmatically bid and showing up in the scene. That is something where, we have the pipes. We're working with our first set of publishers and advertisers doing that. But I think this really starts to take off in 2026, is the ability to do that. And then the trifecta is to do all three, is to bid to show up in the scene, bid to have your ad in the ad pod, but do both. That way you see your product in the scene and then you hear the ad pitch after the scene. Right? So, similar to kind of what you saw there, you saw the perfume with Cardi B, and then you see an ad that runs after it where you can specifically say why you like the perfume.
Very interesting. Another curiosity that I have, I don't even have the answer to this, but hopefully we get it today. It's There's generative ads and there's augmented. This is something that a lot of advertisers are exploring, but I think they're figuring it out. They're not sure of where to go, what to look for, how to focus on this. So, from your perspective, as a founder of Rembrand and a board member of the trade desk, like what's your perspective on this? And give us good light and where they should focus
Yeah,
on.
I was going to show you a quick slide. So the way I look at this is there's a new category emerging that we call AI creative for programmatic. And if you look at the x-axis, it's how highly produced is a piece of content. We started out in the top right, which is it's a TV show, it's a highly produced creator video for a large audience, and we place the product in it. But if you have to look at this whole area where it's going, with Spaceback now, we basically say, hey, you can take a social post and turn it into a TV ad or an online video ad, distribute it everywhere programmatically in a bidded way. But the two areas that are new that are going to start to happen is if you don't have a piece of social creative or a TV show, generate a video and either generate that and put it into paid ad serving or organic placement. So I'm working with a partner company that does generated ads that are placed organically, And generally, they're starting, I'd say, in the long tail or mid tail of advertisers, because the biggest advertisers, don't yet accept that, or when they do accept it, they have so many approval cycles that it's slow. And so what you see this happening early on in kind of very simple ads, carousels, very short ads, and small advertisers. But I see this is going to start changing. Right now, it's still a bit dangerous. The generative techniques destroy too much around them in terms of augmenting. That's why we use our techniques of controllable diffusion when we're doing augmentation of video. But purely generative will also have its role, and it'll start to move out of the box of small advertiser and kind of just images into 15-second units eventually. And probably you'll still have some augmentation, like some techniques people are playing with are synthetic influencers being placed that has all sorts of like economic, social, legal issues to be figured out. Not just it used to be that the AI was the problem, that it didn't look real, that the voice didn't look natural. Some of that still exists, but it's getting better and better so fast. But the technology is improving faster than the business issues around it. So this is kind of the way I see this category forming.
Amazing. Omar, the technology here is, for brands, you've opened the way for them to be more than ever culturally relevant. The I still fear that they might still struggle, and they still might be making mistakes on the audience and understanding them and trying to connect with them. But I think this is where I would want your perspective and advice on, like, if you want one thing for brands to take away today, what would that be?
Uh, First, don't interrupt content, become part of the content. So that's number one, because it's more polite for your audience. Don't bet against consumers. That's what consumers want. So that's the first takeaway. The second one I would say is understand this is a wide area. So differentiate from needing to be a product placed in a scene, like a Pepsi can on the table, for and the other type of placement, which is what I call functional messaging. Functional messaging is when you want to actually have them remember a piece of news. Sprite now has cherry. Cadillac now has the lyric electrical version. Brands often have news, and that news is better in a message format, like a billboard, than just placing the can on the table. So being very careful about the job to be done. If what you're trying to do is spread news about a new thing so people start buying it, use the functional messaging billboard approach. If it's likability because you need to be seen next to Cardi B, use the product placement. They're very different vehicles. And most people are not precise about knowing that. So what we've seen is more volume shifting towards this idea of let me get my news out in a way that it won't get skipped, in a way that is going to get remembered, that's more effective than an interruptive ad.
There you go. Um, you know what? I'm going to take this little clip. I'm going to turn it into a pitch proposal and take it to a brand. um, that's amazing. I think I've got some questions here. I think everybody's really curious on a couple things. There's Naval. He's asking, is this the same technology which has been used in sports, not just movies or TV shows? Seen some content in cricket and football. The ads are divided by region.
Yeah, totally. It's a different technology. I mean, what you see with sports is there'd be like this massive truck sitting outside, there'd be a delay a few seconds. And the context is very well understood in advance. They've mapped out the whole playing field, and they know that they can replace a square over here so that some people see, an Emirates ad and, somebody else sees something else. So that's been going on. It's a very different technique than what we do, because we rewrite the whole video because we have to be a little bit more aware of the moving three-dimensionality of it. But those technologies will collapse at some point, but and may use some techniques, but it's essentially a different problem.
We have another question from Joey. How can you guarantee the safety of the AI agent from allowing someone to inject malicious content to be displayed?
So great question. And we don't give the agent that kind of authority, meaning agents will say, here's a video. Do you want to place it? I'll even show you. The agent might, in addition to telling you which scene. So we have scene analysis say, here's a scene that you can do. Then the agent might say, hey, I'm going to automatically place it for you. But then the owner can basically come and move it around and change, the placement, and then they approve it in the scene. They can even change the direction of the Moe bottle. They can change what they want. They could decide to put a message in this TV screen. So it still has a human in the loop component that the buyer gets to decide. Now we separated the buyer and the seller. The seller in advance says, here's real estate I'm willing to allow someone to touch. And then brands can come in and say, in general, I want, to put in TV screens or billboards or on tables. And everything is automatable, but we give one checkpoint for people to say, yes, I accept that. Some percentage of the time, you don't need that. Some of the percentage of the time that they've approved that it's a billboard and that we're only showing in, any of these, 30 shows, they let the system happen automatically. But there's checks on the sell side on I'm going to allow a billboard here, and I'm going to allow this type of advertiser here. Those checks are what protect the brand safety.
Joey, I hope that clears it up. We still have some time, have the room for questions open. Naval has a new question actually. Is the price the same as buying spots on TV or traditional media?
Yes, basically it's a CPM. And with the programmatic offering, it's going to be exactly like buying anything programmatically. It's going to be CPM and impression by impression ad serves. The non-programmatic version, it's CPM, but you're essentially baking into the whole piece of content, and everybody watching it sees it. And so that's the difference between the programmatic evolution and the current one. But in both cases, it's a CPM. So we were very thoughtful about that. We didn't want to innovate everything because that's too much of a headache to the buyer. We want it to look much more similar to something they're used to.
I can also see the difference here being you spend hours, like a ton of hours in pre-planning, and that there's your ROI right there. Like I don't know how much you save, but it's a ton of hours, a ton of media planners trying to arrange it with the other party, and then also your ad getting interrupted or ad blocked, and you lose your impressions there.
There's a huge percentage of ads that are not seen, even though they're ran and they're paid for. There's audiences that pay to receive no ads. So like I use YouTube Premium and I pay for the Netflix version. So essentially there's a percentage of the audience, which is from an advertiser's perspective, a desirable part of the audience that they simply can't touch without these techniques. We call it reach the unreachable. But even when people are supposedly watching interruptive ads, as you mentioned, some of them have ad blockers, some of them just get up from the room, some of them fast forward. Like there's all sorts of things that are going on that make this kind of technique essentially it's you have to do it over time.
Definitely. And I've also seen browsers not betting against the consumer. They're building some amazing ad blockers in their products, and they're becoming multi-billion-dollar companies as a result. But it comes down to this specifically. I mean, I've seen that happen real time. There's I think
Absolutely.
Bravo. It's a pretty crazy one. Still have some time. I want to ask you, three to 4 years from now, AI is developing massively. When we have reasoning models that are improving at orders of magnitude in speed, what is advertising is going to look like in the next few years? from
I
your
think
perspective?
if your time horizon 3 to 5 years, I think it'll take us that long to really drive adoption of this programmatic vision that basically says different people will see different things. Ad units that are insertions are gonna happen in a programmatic system. It's going to be dynamic. It's not going to be, upfront negotiated with all these back and forths. That transformation of a $48 billion industry, which itself is growing fast, will take 3 to 5 years to happen with the early industries like the CPGs and the entertainments, and expand to other industries, happen heavily in the US, expand to other countries. That's going to take us 3 to 5 years just doing that. Now, the more forward-thinking part of it is going to be today. What we're generally doing is putting things in billboards and tables, but will we have the permission to actually make the product used in a certain way? So we did an example of this where and we broke the rules and were a bit more manual than we wanted to be, where we'd put a stain on someone's shirt and then use a Tide pen to remove the stain, where you're actually interacting in the scene more deeply than just showing up. I think that's going to start to happen too. There's a good question, a couple of questions that are coming on here. A question about getting acquired and prospective buyers. Yeah, I think the main thing I'll say is the same thing I said with Blue Kai and Voicea and stuff like this. Don't build a company to get acquired or not get acquired. Build a company to change the world, to do something that people really, really care about. Because the second your executives start, going to the bar just so they get picked up, they're not thinking long game. They're thinking short game. I don't want my team thinking short game. That doesn't mean we won't get acquired. It just means it's not what I'm chasing. I want to solve a problem, have fun, do it, and have an impact. And along the way, the less you think about acquisition, the more you raise your probability that somebody wants to buy you anyway. So it's a win-win to think that way. So the next thing is there's a question here about no ads option. It's a really thoughtful question, and it really has to do with the fact that the more we succeed, the more we allow people to have a lower ad load, even for their paid tier, even for their ad tier, which is 10 years ago, 80% of content was consumed in high ad load environments. What I mean by that is 17 minutes out of an hour were ad interruptions. 10 years later in the US, 80% of the content is now in low or no ad load environments, which is either no ads or 5 minutes of ads. So that shift, we now provide a way for you to increase that shift, to say if you can make more money without interrupting, you can have fewer and fewer interruptions. But that does mean that you want to put the brand both in the paid tier and the ad tier, in both. To answer your question specifically, the product will be placed in both. We have had one streamer ask us, could we remove the placement for the paid tier? And the answer is yes, we can, but we generally don't see people wanting to do that.
I hope that summarizes it for Joey. It's a very interesting question, actually. I had another question.
You're welcome.
It's on live. So there's something that is brewing up on Twitch, and the streamers that are coming out of there, and there's new ones, and they're actually just taking the attention by storm. There's Kaisenet, and there's these couple of other guys that are coming up, and they're already massive. They do a lot of things. They put on a camera, and they just do a lot of things, and within those things, there's a lot of categories: beauty, media, fitness. Is there somewhere down the roadmap where you actually are able to allow brands to purchase ad space live on some random thing that's happening on Kaizenet's stream?
Yeah, I'll tell you, we do a bunch of stuff with Kaizenet. And it tends to be once you take the video and make it a YouTube, so it's not live. They may have had a live stream, but then they place it in YouTube. Right before it places in YouTube, we do the first product. So we do that today. And then with the Spaceback business, we also look at the trending ones. We turn them into an ad unit and we promote them. That's what we do today. The live component, we will get there. It'll take us a little bit of time because, like I said, we're rewriting the video. And so we're likely going to start this with just the person who was asking earlier about sports. We'll probably copy those techniques, which is to say, put a billboard or a TV screen or something that's more two-dimensional first, and then we'll move to three-dimensional. But we are not there yet because our current focus on influencer and then taking the video and putting it out in programmatic and then movies and TV shows. It's such a big market. It'll be a little bit before we do the pure live one, but we're almost there.
I'm very excited. I'm very excited. Thank you so much, Amor. I think we're coming up to time, and I think we've gotten some great insights from your perspective. And see if you have any more questions here. Um, I'm gonna be like those auctioneer guys, calling 3 seconds, 2 seconds. No, I'm kidding. But appreciate it so much. This is an example of what this Impact to Billion Summit's going to be like. Omar is going to be there. He's going to be speaking. He's going to be sharing a lot more there. And if you want to meet him and talk more, please sign up to impacttobillion.com. And more importantly, if you want to get this competitive advantage for your brand or somebody that you do know, you need to contact rembrand.com and their email. And this is the time to change things up. And if you're a brand that moves slowly, I think you'll be left behind for sure. But I really appreciate you all coming. And I hope that it's been a great webinar for you all.
Awesome. We'd love to see you at the event. We'd love to work with you for brand. If you're a content owner, we'd love to help you monetize. Thank you so much for sitting with us, and thank you, Marwan, for a wonderful conversation, and thank you for Rod for inviting us.
Thank you for joining us today. It's been a pleasure. It's been a pleasure.